Unfortunately, Portponky was caught in a violent iron storm, so we apologize for mild background noise during this episode. Welcome to Epilogue Podcast, the show where we discuss some stuff that happened on a different show ages ago which nobody really cares about anymore.
Hi, I'm Portponky.
And I'm LeBloc.
Today we're discussing Deep Space Nine, Season 5, Episode 19, Ties of Blood and Water. Kira's Cardassian stepdad, sort of guy, Tekeni Gamor, returns to the station to die, much to the annoyance of Dukat.
What did you think of this one?
It's actually one I didn't recall very well, but it's decent. Little dramatic episode about Kira. The Bajoran stuff that deals with the history of Bajor and the occupation, and well, especially Kira's past. They're always the strongest Bajoran episodes, so I thought this was no exception. How about you?
I agree with that. One thing I really like about this episode is that they present behavior from Kira that I thought was inconsistent with what we know of Kira, but then they explain it in a way that was satisfying to me. So, for example, at first I thought it didn't make any sense. She didn't want the info about the Cardassians. I would think Kira would jump at the chance to gain that advantage. And when she was vacillating, I thought, wait, this doesn't make sense. But then they showed me why it does. And so that was good. And then they did it again when I thought it didn't make sense for Kira to let past choices of Gamor define him. So she finds out he was part of this military action, and she decides, okay, he's worthless now. And that seemed way too harsh for Kira to do. But then they showed me why she was making that choice. So I like that a lot, how it kept going back and forth like that.
Yeah, the flashbacks punctuated her character choices quite nicely. Liked Odo's little analysis as well. Oh, there was something I do greatly like about this episode. You could probably guess what it is.
When she throws a mug at Dukat?
Yep. We said before that she's brave, just gutsy as anything in the face of Dukat. So she does that line, sorry enough to leave. That was just fantastic. And then he sticks around, she just throws a cup at his head.
Which is remarkably restrained when you consider she said she would kill him the next time she saw him.
Maybe she had high hopes for that cup. If it did kill him.
If she had aimed it just a little better.
It just drops dead, and Kira's like, oh, okay. Mixed feelings about this one. There was another thing I liked, although that's not so much this episode, but we saw the return of Weyoun.
Well, the return of a Weyoun. This is a clone, the fifth one.
Who's counting? It's Weyoun. So it's Jeffrey Combs back in action. Always a pleasure to see on screen.
It's good to have him back, because the way he died was so strange. It happened so quickly. So I was glad to see him back here.
They actually didn't want to kill him once they'd started shooting the previous episode he was in, to the death. But they can't really change it midway through shooting, or they couldn't think of a way to round it out without having him die. So instead they just said, oh, voters are clones, so here's Weyoun.
It works. You would see the Dominion going to those lengths.
If you have a good diplomat, why not have more of that diplomat.
Infinite good diplomat.
I don't know how good Wayoon is. He's a bit kind of belittling. He's sort of giggling at all the stuff they're doing. I suppose maybe the Alpha Quadrant is just loose change to them.
Why do you say that?
Well, the Dominion is older than the Federation and presumably a lot larger than the Federation, so the Alpha Quadrant's just a weak point. They've got this wormhole, and there's a bunch of guys with battleships on the other side. But it seems like Wayoon is not that bothered.
He's having his fun.
Yes, that's the point. It shouldn't really be a laugh, but to him it is.
When you're in the all-powerful Dominion, this all seems silly.
He also drank the poisoned Kanar.
That was pretty funny. Seeing him drink that and deliver that line saved that for me, because it's an idiotic plan to send stuff to Gamor while he's ill and you've expressed how you want him back. It's really stupid.
That was a sort of Scooby-Doo level plan.
Of course it's tampered with. Unmarked gift while he's fatally ill.
It's two guys hanging about. Oh, I really hope that guy dies soon. Who could it have been? And then when Cisco calls him out on it, the cat's all like, oh, what? Why would you accuse us? Come on now. Who else would it be?
His mom ordered the wrong stuff.
I think that brings me on to one of the weaknesses of this episode. There was a lot of intrigue stirred up that Gamor would spill something that Ducat didn't like, but that kind of fizzles out.
I wish that aspect weren't introduced. It would work without that. He sees this as someone who should be in Cardassia. I could see that as enough for Ducat to be annoying and forcing the issue.
I mean, intelligence is useful. It really seemed like he was going to spill something specific, but I guess he didn't. I don't know, the gravity of the information he was delivering didn't come across well.
No, it seemed really general type stuff. Stuff they would have gained anyway, eventually, through other means.
More or less, yeah.
I didn't understand as a viewer what was special about this information, other than being told this is special.
Maybe we will find out in a later episode. I honestly can't remember. So maybe.
Well, that's a good thing to point out. We could be overly harsh right now. We can't expect vital information to come to use immediately.
Yeah, if it's just a general intel, like, oh, these guys are good guys, this guy's an idiot, etc., then that's could be useful in numerous ways. It's odd they didn't just send in a Jem'Hadar soldier to kill him.
Too easy. You gotta work for it.
Like, if they were willing to poison him, so there'd be no question that he was outright murdered by someone, why not just send in a Jem'Hadar? They don't care if they die on the mission, or if they get caught or executed or whatever.
I don't understand why Ducat is semi playing by the rules with Cisco in DS9. He could just attack it.
Oh, well, the Federation and Klingon and Romulan fleets together were no small force, and the Dominion fleet we saw come through the wormhole was, what, 50-something ships? Substantial, but he probably doesn't want to force an all-out war.
Sending a Jem'Hadar would be an act of war, I would think.
Oh, well, that's probably why they didn't do it. They still should have had a better plan than poisoned Kanar.
Even that is an act of war. It's an assassination attempt.
But who knows who sent that Kanar? It could have been anyone. It could even have been Gamor.
Oh, he was so sad that he sent himself poison.
I felt really bad for him when he spilled his cup of water.
Oh, I know. And then Kira's yelling at him because she's in a mood.
She's not in a mood. She's distraught about her father's death. These flashbacks. Okay, in the first flashback, there's something really weird. But one of the guys in the background has the Jemadar weapons, like the staffs with the blades.
Oh, I didn't see that.
It's kind of, well, if you go back and watch the first flashback, you'll see it. It's noticeable. They're not far away. They're right behind one of the characters. I can't remember if it's Kira. But yeah, it's a Jem'Hadar blade. Why have they got that?
The Jem'Hadar took inspiration from the Bajorans for modeling their weapons. They thought, dang, these religious farmers really know how to make weaponry.
I think you maybe said that jokingly, but that's actually not impossible because we know that the Jem'Hadar wiped out the colony of New Bajor in the Gamma Quadrant. And I don't think we saw the bladed weapons until after that happened, so they could have found them on New Bajor and said, yeah, hey, these are pretty good. Let's get them for everyone.
That's when they adopted him.
Oh, you solved it. My belief in Star Trek is restored.
This was the linchpin issue where they got these blades?
Yeah, I just assumed it was all fake because of that, but now you've proven it could well be real. In one of the other flashbacks, when Kira's father has passed away. Oh, by the way, I said he died in a concentration camp in an earlier podcast, so I now recognize I was incredibly wrong to say that. Oh, anyway. When her father is dead and she gets back, one of the dudes says, hey, your father's died. He died calling your name.
Just thought I'd slip that in there so you feel even worse.
It's a horrible thing to say. Oh, your father's died. He was in unbelievable pain for hours. Oh, okay, thanks.
And he said he was completely disappointed in you as a daughter.
Yeah, jeez. It's such a throwaway line. Actually, I could imagine someone saying that, just not thinking.
Yeah, I could see that too. He's not a trained doctor. He doesn't think about bedside manner.
Well, I think it goes a bit further than that. That's basic empathy.
He could think he's being helpful. Oh, she wasn't here for his dying moments. Let me tell her how it went down. So it's like she were there.
I'm sure she'll appreciate that at this very moment.
I really like when she says, I'm going to make whoever did this to you pay. She says it more than once, and I like that repetition because it felt like she was trying to convince herself it was a good idea to leave her father, that she shouldn't stay with him, even though he requested it. She kept telling herself, oh, I have to do something about this. I have to take action. That was nice how they didn't point that out to me or in some way, how she was convincing herself, but that was good.
Yeah, the flashbacks were generally good. We got to see Ferrell again, this time with two arms. I mean, he's dead now in the main plotline. He died in the Darkness and the Light. We got to see him in a flashback.
I love bits of continuity like that.
Yeah, it's a lovely touch because you just don't expect to see them again. Nice little bit of world building put to use.
Which they don't exploit, which is good. Because once you kill off a character, you get used to them being dead. And then if you find a way to undo that and have constant flashbacks, it undermines killing off the character in the first place. So they don't do that, and that's good.
I think it worked well because the flashback wasn't about him. He was just
good
incidental.
point.
This episode had a weird mix of some good exposition and some extremely bad exposition.
Ooh, let's talk about the bad exposition.
Okay, well, the bad first was at the end where Bashir is comforting Kira and kind of explains the plot of the episode.
Yeah, that was really clunky. But then at the same time, Nana Visitor's acting was really good. So she kind of saves it there.
Oh, no doubt she saves it.
And we don't pay attention as much, but his lines, man.
Like he tried to run from Gamor.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yes, we noticed. We've just spent 40 minutes looking at that in detail.
This whole episode is about a regret she has and how she's been running away from it. You don't need to tell us that.
So that was the bad exposition. The good exposition, or I think it was quite well done, was when Worf and Dax are there to greet Gamora at the start. Obviously, they leveraged the fact that Worf wasn't there for the episode Second Skin to explain it all, even though Worf doesn't really say anything.
Yeah.
So I guess that's good. It's simple, it works. It doesn't feel like a massive, clunky statement.
So this episode made me realize most of the DS9 crew is famous. We find out in this episode that Kira is a big deal, that people talk about her all the time. Cisco is the emissary. He's a religious icon. Worf is a pariah. He's not thought of well by the rest of his people.
Oh, yeah, but he was famously exiled at the top levels of Klingon government.
Okay, I didn't even realize that.
It's in the Next Gen. Oh, well, no, he's exiled in Deep Space Nine. Oh god, it's confusing. Some stuff happens in Next Gen anyway. He is famous to Klingons.
Bashir is a famous genius doctor. He's been up for the most prestigious award.
The Carrington Award.
And he was profiled for that hologram thing.
The LMH.
Yes. Odo is a changeling, seen as a god by the Jem'Hadar. And
the Vorta.
Yeah, and the Vorta. And then we have Dax, who's just the Trill.
Oh, Dax. Or at least Curzon Dax is famous.
Okay. So she's riding on the coattails of Curzon Dax.
Yes. For 5 seasons now. Those are some stretched coattails.
How about O'Brien?
He's not famous. He can't be famous because he's the everyman.
Yeah, it wouldn't work as well.
He can never achieve anything. All that can happen is he's defeated again and again.
But yes, most of the crew is famous, and that's kind of weird.
They're swamped with exiles, religious icons, famous, powerful people. It makes sense though. It would be weird if the show was just about some random dudes on a space station. Someone turns up and said, "Hey, did you know no one knows anything about you guys? You don't do anything of interest."
They could excel at their jobs and not be known throughout the universe.
I don't think they're that well known.
Well, they're not unknown.
Yeah, well, Kira is known to the Kardashians. That's not surprising, though. She's done a hell of a lot to them. In a previous episode, Xiao, I think, said maybe the Vorta are big on alcohol, gambling, and sex. And in this episode, we see Weiyun is well into gambling, which is quite a nice little touch.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
It's good. It's good to make a joke and then have the punchline 2 or 3 episodes later.
I'm so used to the episodes being self-contained that when there is a payoff like that happens later, often I'll miss it because I don't keep that in my mind.
Do you want to perform the ceremony of Shritol and share some information or a quote with us?
Do you know something I don't? Am I dying?
We all are. Just it will take hopefully a long time.
Before we get into the quote, I want to mention how weird that ritual is. Why is that a thing? That they give their secrets to use against enemies? It's an odd tradition.
Yeah, just put that into your will. You don't, like, most people don't know when they're gonna die. Some do. And even then, it's not that accurate. Just put your internet passwords in your will and be done with it. Anyway, do you have a quote to share with us?
It takes a great man to admit he's wrong.
That's why YouTube comment sections are so terrible.
Kira proves that here. She's not so stubborn as to avoid admitting fault.
Yeah, I completely agree with the quote. Admitting you're wrong is one of the hardest things you can do quite often. It gets easier with practice. I mean, if you're wrong often, eventually people just regard you as an idiot, and then you get free reign to be as wrong as you want. I speak from experience.
It's good to see Kira have this weakness because she's often portrayed as super powerful and resolute, which is great. But then you can't have a perfect person. Not that she's been portrayed that perfectly, but we see more humanity in her.
Well, everyone has the emotional feelings. So even if your character is super strong, been through a lot, very tough, hardened exterior, very stoic, and whatnot, you gotta get the human element, otherwise they'll end up just looking like a psychopath.
It's really rough when she talks about counting Gamore's forced breaths and how she couldn't stand to see the strength slipping away from her father. It was rough stuff.
It's a hard-hitting episode. Well, in the specific Tale of Two Dads sort of manner, it's fairly rough going, which is good. The drama should get you a bit riled up. I think we should not move on to the next episode.
What? Why?
Oh, I was wrong. We should.
I can hear the prophets calling to us to move on to the next episode.
I'm a great man because I just admitted I was wrong. Well, let's do it then.